1. Sogard hits it on the ground to third at Garcia. And the Red Sox fall in the finale but take the series. But they lose tonight 8-4. Pasquantino and Witt, the stars for the Royals, to salvage something against the Sox, who head home after a successful trip.
Yeah, 6 RBIs between those two guys. Cole Reagan's had good stuff. He was as advertised. Cutter Crawford, 3 2/3. Probably not going to be happy with that, giving up 6 runs. But good to see Chris Martin back. That's a good sign to have him back for the back end of that bullpen. Some high leverage situations. Nice series win. Go get some rest. Get ready for Houston.
Will Middlebrooks is right about that. It was a nice series win. It's been a good stretch here for the Red Sox. And it doesn't get any easier this weekend. In fact, it gets harder this weekend as the Red Sox return home, opening up a big set. This is a big weekend for the Sox against the Houston Astros, and that's where we start tonight on the Baseball Hour. It's the Friday Roundtable. No, Maz. No.
We miss you, Maz.
When was the last time Maz was here on a Friday? The Friday before Memorial Day. Jim Murray says, I believe he's right about that. And you'll see him on the Friday after Labor Day. Ain't no way he's working until then. So you get me, you get Milliken, you get Stu. 617-779-0985. Phone lines are open to you. Tyler, I think it's important that we start tonight with the week that was for the Red Sox, where they're going, because I think the story for this week is I saw why I think they're going to make the playoffs. But I also saw why they might not make the playoffs. Like they both of those things really on display for the Red Sox this week. They continue to hit. They continue to be a really, really fun team. But I'm concerned about the starting pitching. And it doesn't get any easier for them moving forward. Like you saw all the good things from the Red Sox this week, and they're a game and a half out of the playoffs at this point. But you also saw why they might not make the playoffs. That's the takeaway for me.
Yeah, you look right now, I can't believe, what's today's date? August 9th, we're sitting here and the Red Sox have the highest OPS as a lineup in all of baseball.
I'm stunned by
Imagine if we were saying that in mid-May when they were struggling to score runs and the pitching staff was, doing everything they could to carry the team, and it was, hey, how is this lineup going to be any better without Tristan Casas? How are they going to find themselves and get by? And, part of it's been so many guys stepping up, whether you want to talk about Dom Smith, Rob Resnider hitting lefties and righties, Devers' MVP campaign that continues to put him, not in the Bobby Witt Jr. and Aaron Judge tier, but right below that. But then you also look at where the starting rotation is right now, and they are 28th since the All-Star break in starter ERA, 29th overall in terms of ERA, including the bullpen. And I think when you look at where the rotation is right now, I don't have many concerns about where the lineup's at, because you're going to be adding what I think is your second best hitter in the next week and a half or two in Tristan Casas. And yes, Dom Smith has been great. You add Casas to that lineup, it is a whole nother level you're bringing yourself to. But with the starting rotation, now with Nick Pivetta, and I think he's the first one that has really cracked and now had to stop pitching to some degree, arm fatigue. His last start, I was looking at the velocity during the start, and many people wondered why Cora was so aggressive in pulling him. His fastball was down over 2 miles per hour. That's the veteran that's supposed to eat innings at all costs. Then you look at Tanner Houck, whose velocity as well was also down. Now over his last 6 starts, it's a 6.16 ERA and a 5.95 FIP.
Wait, what? Houck over his last 6 starts? What's his ERA?
6.16.
Don't give me the FIP, just his ERA.
That's it.
6.16? Not good.
And the K percentage is down and the walks have been up, the two concerning things. And he said something that stuck out to me. While he was missing more bats in this start and he was throwing more strikes, he goes, hey, the last month I've been kind of up and down in terms of movement. The sinker was kind of getting a little bit vertical on me. The slider didn't have the same bite. So as he's starting to wear down, are the mechanics we talked about so much this year that he kind of changed and helped reshape his arsenal, is that going down the tube here? Cutter Crawford, who the velocity was a bit up in this last start, in May, he was talking about how his mechanics were getting out of whack because he had never thrown so many innings before. And Alex Cora is not going to tell you the guys are wearing down or whatever it may be, just like he didn't tell you Nick Pivetta was wearing down before they had to skip his start. And then you have Brian Bayo, who you're hoping to carry the rotation, who seemingly kind of took a step back in Kansas City, looked really good after, a little turbulence in that first inning, and then ultimately fell on his face and didn't go 5 innings. That's scary to me. And it's nice to see what James Paxton is doing. You'd be lying if you say you don't hold your breath after every single start that he's going to pop up with a new injury. And that's what you need to lean on here. And when you look at the teams around you, specifically the Mariners, they have the pitching to survive down the stretch. Who really knows if you do right now? And that's why you're checking in on Rich Hill.
Would you sign Rich Hill? News today that the Red Sox were at Rich Hill's showcase. You in on this idea? How old is Rich Hill at this point? 44 years old?
44 years old. And, he pulled the old Roger Clemens. He let everyone know who was willing to listen early in the season. He was calling games on radio for the Red Sox, but he was saying, hey, I want to watch my son play baseball after his season's done. Come talk to me.
5.41 ERA last year. Would you sign Rich Hill?
I would, because I believe if you go and look back at his first 15 starts last year, they were a lot better than most people would think. Now, are they ace level? Are they anything special? No, I'm not telling you that. But yeah, here we go. This was even 22 starts. It was like about a 4.6 ERA. It's even better if you go down to 15. I think it's a 4.4. He really wore down after he got to San Diego, and I think me and you, McCarthy, funny enough at the time, we were kind of sitting there talking, should they bring Rich Hill in at that deadline?
Last year.
16 starts last year, 4.45 ERA, 4.24 FIP.
I'd bring him in. And listen, it's because you're not going to get anybody else at this point. They need a guy who can take the ball every 5 days, and he can do that, because I'm not convinced at this point, Milliken, that their starting pitching is going to hold up. And Rich Hill is no great shakes or anything at this point. 44 years old, we all know what he is. But if you can go out there and take the ball every 5 days, there is some level of advantage to that. There is something you have going for you if you can do that. And to me, Tyler, that's the difference between you making the playoffs and missing the playoffs. I'm concerned about Cutter Crawford. I'm concerned about Tanner Houck. What I saw from Crawford the other night was concerning.
He's making MLB history right now as he starts. Like, most homers ever given up in a 3-game span. He's tied for the most ever over a 4-game span with Aaron Harang. Aaron Harang was the last time anyone mentioned him, and Lynn Nelson, I believe. So that's where Cutter Crawford is, and you can make the argument, yeah, maybe the velo's there. He's not able to dot pitches. He doesn't have his command. That can be another sign of a guy wearing down.
They're wearing down. But I still think they're a playoff team. I do. I look around the competition in the American League. I'm not wowed by it. I think you're just on par with Kansas City. I think maybe you're a little bit better because I think you've got a better offense. That's what we talked about at the beginning of the program, Milliken. This Red Sox offense has been surprising, and I think they're capable of carrying them if you can just get representable big league starting pitching, which they've gotten for the majority of the year, and now I'm worried that they will not get that down the stretch. It's going to come down to the starting rotation. That's the difference between you making the playoffs and missing the playoffs. And I will take a body. I will take anybody, even if it's 44-year-old, 45-year-old Rich Hill at this point, who might be able to give you a spot start if Cutter Crawford needs a rest. That's what this team needs right now.
I'll give you the stat right here, McCarthy. Who do you have, or who do you believe in your head has the number one starter ERA in all of baseball this year? I'll tell you. The Seattle Mariners, who you're vying for that playoff spot. Who's number 3? The Kansas City Royals. So those two teams that have kind of carried themselves with their starting pitching being this good are arguably the two teams you're going to be punching back and forth, especially if the Astros end up kind of taking over the West, which many expect them to do. But that's what you're going to be battling. Two teams that seemingly have their rotations ready to stand up and go, punch for punch with you. Rich Hill, if he's willing to come here and be... hey, we're not promising you anything. Maybe it's a spot start here, some days in the bullpen. But guess what? You get to stay home. You get to be here in Boston. You get to end your career really in a way you kind of wanted to.
You can never have enough pitching. You can never, ever have enough pitching. It's not about going, punch for punch, pound for pound with Seattle's starting rotation right now. It's not about going pound for pound with Kansas City's starting rotation right now. I hear what you're saying on that, but they don't need to do that because the Red Sox have better offenses than both of those teams, which is, again, what we mentioned at the beginning of the show. Best OPS since May or best OPS in baseball right now?
All of baseball, with the Yankees and Orioles sitting in 2 and 3.
With the state of the American League, that should be enough to get you to the playoffs. And I think it's enough to get you to the playoffs if you just find a way to get a guy to take the ball every 5 days, which is the biggest concern right now for the Red Sox. I'm concerned that Nick Pivetta might not be able to do that. I'm concerned that Tanner Houck might not be able to do that. I'm really concerned that Cutter Crawford might not be able to do that. I don't think James Paxton is anything great, but you saw what James Paxton gave you earlier this week. Milliken, that's how you make the playoffs. That's a game or two, and it's going to come down to a game or two. They have the tiebreaker over Kansas City. They have the tiebreaker over Seattle. You just need a warm body to go out there and take the ball every 5 days, and this team should be good enough to do it.
And just having an extra one, Cooper Criswell lands on the COVID IL today, and he was supposed to start on Saturday in the place of Nick Pivetta to give these guys a breather. And keep in mind, Tanner Houck and Cutter Crawford, a lot of this rotation, they've been getting an extra day. They're already giving these guys, basically 6 days to kind of go and figure it out. Maybe Rich Hill comes in, and they're willing at that point to say, screw it, we're going to go an actual 6-man rotation here to kind of piece this thing together because we have the depth and someone who's willing to kind of flip and flop depending on what the schedule looks like each week to kind of make it all happen. I think that just gives you more flexibility. At this point, you need the arms because it is Cooper Criswell or Josh Winkowski who has to step in that rotation if something happens.
I'd absolutely consider going 6-man rotation down the stretch because I don't think you're going to get the best out of Houck and out of Crawford, your two most important pitchers all year long, Milliken. I don't think you're going to get the best if you keep giving them the ball every 5 days.
And you're going to have a bullpen that should be able to give you more than a typical bullpen does at this time of year. Not only off talent, but Justin Slayton and Chris Martin coming off the IL, they don't have the same mileage they've had in recent years. Specifically, Chris Martin, who last year was carrying you and really your fireman day after day, pitching unbelievably out of his mind. All right, well, you can push Chris Martin here. Justin Slayton should be able to be pushed a bit. You have the talent, whether it's Lucas Sims, Luis Garcia, to kind of push back and play the option games.
Been great.
Been incredible. And keep him in the ninth. You got to keep him healthy. His back's been barking. But you can play the option game. You could play the option game here, though, with the likes of Zach Kelly, even a Brennan Bernardino. They just did it with Cam Boozer. You have actual bullpen depth where if you're going to pitch an arm down, and guess what? Rosters are going to expand in September. You're going to have another arm to help make this entire thing work.
That's the takeaway from this week. You just need to get enough. You just need to somehow find a way to get this rotation to not completely fall apart. If they do not completely fall apart, and that's on the table, I think they're a playoff team. Do you think they're a playoff team?
Yes, I think they can stand there. The only thing that will sink this team ultimately is whether they can't handle the workload. And can they find a way around that? I think they have enough pitching depth to do that because, like you said, with this offense, you're number one in baseball in OPS. Nobody, I don't care how positive you were, had that on the table. And without Tristan Casas for a majority of the year, you should be able to reach even another level when he comes back in the next week.
And major injury news for the Red Sox, not related to Tristan Casas. Somebody else they could be getting back, and it sounds like they will be getting back for the stretch run here. 617-779-0985. I want to talk about that next. Stu's here. Milliken's here. It's McCarthy in for Maz on the baseball.
yeah, I knew it was bad, in the moment, just because I heard it come out, and heard some other things too, and just the pain I felt was, I never felt anything like that. So, but you always try to be optimistic and just hope that it went out and came back in, and try to make the best out of the situation. But obviously, some other things happened, and it was more serious than we had hoped for. So, just hard to imagine, really.
It's Trevor Story all the way back in April after his shoulder injury. Did not sound like a guy who's going to be returning this year. I didn't count on it. Out of sight, out of mind. Trevor Story's not back. See you in 2025. Not so fast. McCarthy, Milliken, we got Stu here. 617-779-0985. Reading from Chris Cotillo on Twitter. Alex Cora spoke earlier today. Cora said he is now fully convinced Trevor Story will play again for the Red Sox this year. Story will take batting practice on the field Monday, and what Cora said is a huge step for him. I'm shocked by this, Milliken. Shocked that Trevor Story is apparently on the verge of coming back. Like, it sounds like the Red Sox will get him back for the stretch run.
Who isn't? I think you hear Trevor Story, the emotion he felt in that clip, it was, damn, I lost a whole season. Like, I'm about to go and not see anyone until 2025 spring training, and then it'll be another year completely lost in the tank. But really, none of this conversation started until they were, in Colorado, and we saw him taking grounders out there, and it was like, hey, we're going to call it a very slim chance. Like, that was the wording they were kind of putting out there. More, it seemed like they were trying to give him a reason to keep going. Like, hey, maybe you'll find a way to make it back, or, you'll end the year healthy and it'll be a normal offseason for you. No. And credit to Trevor Story, because I know there's going to be a lot of people who are just simply saying, I don't want to see him. It's bad energy. They kind of associate him like Chris Sale. Just stay out of my mind, because look at what has happened with the Red Sox this year. They are seemingly going on a positive trend, a positive direction, where we're not talking about Trevor Story's contract and all that. Well, hey, before anything, credit to him, because there are people who have questioned his toughness, who have questioned how much he wants to be here and play. It was a year ago when he was on that rehab assignment, when he was taking his time to try and come back, which I think we all saw when he came back. He knew that he wasn't going to be able to hit whatsoever. He was going to be one of the worst bats in the league. But this is proof of the kind of character the guy has. Does that mean he should be on the field? I think that's what we really have to discuss.
I'm not questioning his toughness or his dedication. You saw that earlier this year with how emotional he was with the injury, thinking he was going to miss the full year. This is undeniably a credit to Trevor Story that he's going to try to make it back, and it sounds like he will make it back. But I think you hit on the most important point, Milliken. This is bad news for the Red Sox. This is not good news.
I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say it's bad news. It's a good problem to have.
The Red Sox are a better team without Trevor Story.
Tell me why.
Okay, so, the emotional stuff, real quick, you hit on that. Like, is this guy just bad energy? Is he just bad juju? Is he Chris Sale all over again? Is it never going to work out? All right, fine. That's a factor. The Red Sox are a better team without him because their best lineup is with Cedar Rafaela at shortstop. This is why it's different than last year. Last year, they needed Trevor Story back because even if he couldn't hit, they had nobody who could play shortstop. They had nobody who could play a big league shortstop. This year they do. Cedar Rafaela, we can have a discussion about whether he's better in center field or at shortstop, but he helps them win games by playing shortstop. Their best lineup is with Duran in center and Abreu and O'Neill, who's on the injured list again, in the corners. Their best lineup does not involve Trevor Story playing shortstop. And they don't need a pure defender because they already have somebody who can do this. Trevor Story will be a problem for this team down the stretch when you need big hits. Again, we talked about it. How are the Red Sox going to get to the playoffs? They're going to get there if the starting rotation doesn't break down, but they're really going to get there on the backs of the lineup because they have one of the better producing offenses in baseball this year, the highest OPS in baseball. Trevor Story will be a problem for that lineup. I cannot have a guy out there trying to figure out how to hit big league pitching for the first time in years, coming off a significant injury, hurting my lineup every single night. This is not the right time. We can have a discussion about Trevor Story next year. I'm not a Trevor Story fan. You know that, Milliken. All right? But I'm trying to put my Trevor Story bias aside. This is not good news for the Red Sox. You cannot have a guy trying to figure out how to hit big league pitching coming off an injury in a playoff race when you don't actually need him.
First and foremost, I don't think Trevor Story should be guaranteed anything, even with the money he is being paid, before I explain why.
Isn't that a problem, though? They're going to guarantee him something because he's a clubhouse guy. They're paying him $140 million. Like, when he comes back, he's probably going to play every day or something close to it. Like, he's going to be a huge part of the plans. So we can't ignore that.
I do think it factors in. I would also say, like we will with Tristan Casas, there's going to be a way you have to manage because he hasn't played baseball. So he's going to need a rehab assignment. That's going to take time. That's going to take a couple weeks. So ultimately...
Hold on real quick. The minor league season's going to be over soon. Let's not forget
it goes into later September now. So I do think it factors in a little bit differently here. But, with where Trevor Story's at, right? If he's going to take batting practice on the field, that's a nice step. We got to go through live BP. We got to build up in that sense. Get him his full body back into where it needs to be. So what
real
is he?
Quick, you're right about that. That's
like
totally
September 24th or something.
September 22nd.
When I worked in the minor leagues, the season was over Labor Day.
Yeah, it's very new. This is the last couple years.
That's on me. Thank you. Good point. All right, so that does not apply.
So he'll have a little more time. But I think if we're talking Trevor Story, what's the biggest strength he has right now? It's his defense. That's the one thing that will carry again and again. And while I think Ceddanne Rafaela has been the solution at shortstop this year, do I think he's particularly great over there? I don't. If you actually look metric-wise, he's been one of the worst this year. It's -7 defensive runs saved over there.
What do your eyes tell you?
I think he makes a lot of great plays, but I also think he racks up plenty of errors as well on more routine plays from time to time. And I'm not telling you Ceddanne Rafaela can't play shortstop, but these are the same metrics that will tell you he's 8 defensive runs saved in center field. That's how great he is out there in center field. And outs above average also has him as a poor defender at shortstop. So when you're starting to pair this entire conversation here, right, I think you start factoring in second base. So if you were to throw Trevor Story at shortstop, right, he's going to give you elite defense there. We saw that even at the end of last year. If he had played over the course of the full season, he would have been the best defensive shortstop in baseball. Well, you can move Ceddanne Rafaela and immediately get plus defense at second base. So who is that taking out of this equation? It's David Hamilton and whoever they end up platooning. We saw with Vaughn Grissom, he's going to be sitting in AAA. David Hamilton has not hit for well over 2 months at this point. The last week, he's gotten hot after sitting once again, which has been nice. They made some changes behind the scenes while he was working in the cages, but David Hamilton has not been the bat you really needed since June and May, and it was great when he was doing that. I think you also factor in with Trevor Story, the right-handed bat you've been looking for and kind of pleading for.
He's not it because he can't hit.
Trevor Story's last season against left-handed pitching, which the Red Sox have had their struggles against, he had an 850 OPS against lefties. I'm not telling you he can tap into that, but this is why. Maybe even a platoon role as you kind of figure out how this all works together. Could you put Trevor Story at shortstop? Could you put Ceddanne Rafaela at second base and move David Hamilton to a bench role? Because you're still going to get Story stealing bags. He's a guy who can get you 20 to 25 with defense. I'm not saying it's a perfect fit, but he does check off some boxes that you don't have checked off.
Stu?
I would rather keep Rafaela at shortstop and play Trevor Story at second base because Story has the lesser of the two arms and work around the David Hamilton. But you're going to have elite defense at second base. So now the middle of your basically up the diamond, you're a good defensive team, which is what you need. And so I would go Story at second base rather than short.
So I can buy in on that, right? I mean, either way.
Because your second baseman hasn't hit all year.
Right, and Trevor Story hasn't hit in 5 years, so there you go.
He was a league average bat in 2022. Let's be fair here.
So, all right, but that was the last time, and that was more than 2 years ago. At this point, and he's had more injury concerns, and he has not looked like himself. I think what you hit on, Milliken, is really the plan forward for the Red Sox. I'm just not convinced they're going to be willing to do this.
And by the way, Trevor Story should be your second baseman going forward because you have Marcelo Mayer coming up at any time next year.
Right, so he's going to stunt Mayer's development. But what Milliken is getting at is important. Trevor Story's biggest value to you is at shortstop because it's the thing that makes him a big leaguer at this point. He's a really good defender. I'm not a Trevor Story guy, but he's a really good defender. He's a good defender at second. I think he's a better defender at shortstop because he's played there and has spent most of his career there. But I think what Milliken is getting to is the way the Red Sox should approach this thing. You need to treat Story as if he's nothing more than a platoon player. And I'm just not convinced.
Really, a platoon 8 hitter?
Yeah, because he can't hit. And he hasn't hit in a long time.
Because I want to keep Rafaela at 9 because I like the lineup turnover.
I agree. I'm not convinced the Red Sox are going to do that. I'm convinced the Red Sox will place an oversized importance on Trevor Story, which is why I say this is bad news.
His return to the lineup, starting shortstop and batting second.
I mean,
that's crazy. Yeah,
probably not that, but Jimmy, you're not far off because he's that important to the team. We heard about it in spring training. We heard about it when he got hurt, how important he is to the team. He's a leader. He's a clubhouse guy. He is, your second highest paid player? They're going to treat him like he's their second highest paid player. And therein lies the problem. You want to treat Trevor Story like a platoon player, which is ultimately what he is at this point. Have him hit against lefties, have Hamilton play against righties, whatever that looks like. I can get on board with that because he can help you in the field. They're not going to treat him that way. They're going to play him, if he's physically up to it, they're going to play him most every day, and he is not an everyday player right now.
They're going to treat him like Enrique Hernandez last year, where Cora went to the grave with him.
I do think there is something here, though, right? When we were having these Trevor Story conversations in April, whatever they were, we were having these kind of concerns about where the lineup was, and this is when people were bitching about Justin Turner and how they should have brought him back, and I was one of those people saying they needed another right-handed bat. Well, this is a very different lineup than what we thought was at the beginning of the year, and at this point, we used to say Trevor Story's bat was going to make or break this team. That was a major talking point.
Totally felt that way in March. No doubt about it. It's not
that way anymore. This is a team who has the best OPS in all of baseball, and they don't have Tristan Casas yet. So you can withstand a guy who can't offer you much in terms of a bat. You can throw him at the bottom of your lineup. I do agree with you on the Ceddanne Rafaela thing. I like him at 9. And say, hey, you go hit 8 or 7, and I don't want to think twice about it. Your bat is not going to carry us one way. It'd be nice if you could help us against lefties where we need it, but ultimately your defense should pick us up. And I do think Story should be playing shortstop personally. I'm just looking at outs above average for him at shortstop, Ceddanne Rafaela. It's -9. There's not a metric that supports him being better.
He's not a -9 player in the field, though. I don't care what your metrics say about that.
I'm not saying he's bad. I do think he struggles with the routine plays at times. I do think he's racked up. I think he has 8 errors at the position alone this year. He goes through stretches where he'll make the hard plays, but I do think some of the routine ones tend to get away from him, and that's no disrespect. He still has been exactly what they needed at shortstop. He's been the stabilizer. But we've seen the infield go through these ruts where they've kind of struggled. I think putting Story at shortstop and Rafaela at second makes your infield not quite as good as your outfield, but you shouldn't ever have to have a conversation about the Red Sox defense being a problem again this year. And it was a problem, roughly a month ago where we were having that conversation again?
I'm shocked we're having this conversation now about Story being, which again is a credit to him that it sounds like he's coming back. It's just a much more complicated discussion than you normally have when your second highest paid player comes off the injured list. There are a lot of things here. They have to manage it right. If they manage it right, it's fine. I'm just convinced they're not going to manage it right, and they're going to place more of an importance on Trevor Story than there needs to be, and that's ultimately going to hurt the team.
Yeah, I think there's only 2 guys you can trust playing shortstop for you if you're the Boston Red Sox, and it's Trevor Story and Ceddanne Rafaela. And if they go and look at it and say, hey, we'll play Ceddanne Rafaela at shortstop against righties and David Hamilton at second, I tip my cap, but you're going to need to keep guys fresh in different ways. It's just when you're talking David Hamilton and the guy has a sub 600 OPS over his last 30, you're not getting anything out of that bat. Trevor Story can give you a 590 OPS.
617-779-09085. A 590 OPS, huh? Yeah, no, he can give you that.
I'm not worried.
That's basically what he's given you. I'll actually look up his career.
I can give you a 600 OPS right now.
Get in there, Jay Stu.
Trevor Story's OPS with the Boston Red Sox is essentially Bobby Dahlbeck's OPS with the Boston Red Sox. I'd have to look that up.
You're about to be suspended, Matt.
It's not good. Hey, listen, if that
under the authority of the Section 10 podcast,
if that gets me suspended, you can suspend me for life. Trevor Story equals Bobby Dahlbeck at the plate. I'll get the stats for you, Milliken.
I have a hard time fighting you. I'm not going to lie.
You'll love him. Quick update.
Al Milliken's going to get suspended for Section 10.
Right. I mean, by association. I don't think I'm very popular among the Section 10 audience. I found that out.
Matt McCarthy, I'll go to the grave with you anytime.
That means a lot. Thank you. You too, Milliken. Quick update. We also have an update on Tristan Casas. We got to get to that next. McCarthy, Milliken, Stu, in for Maz. 617-779-0985. Baseball Hour Roundtable on a Friday night. You know how it is. News today on Tristan Casas that I want to get to, but let's knock out a few phone calls here. Patrick in Charlestown. Patrick.
Oh, hey, Milliken. I'm a big fan. I have a question for you guys. I wanted to sell every prospect in the chest for Vlad Jr., but I love Yoshida now. He's becoming my favorite. What's going on with him? Do you think it's sustainable, or is this just a lucky time? I'll hang up.
Masataka Yoshida can actually hit. How about this?
He was injured the first part of the year, and he was in the doghouse. And now he's actually getting playing time. And guess what? What does he do best? He barrels up the baseball. I never lost faith in Yoshida. You people did.
You're right, I did. I lost absolute faith in Yoshida. Jimmy, thank God we have you.
I think it was the Heim thing.
You're better. Yeah.
I was still in the mindset of like, this guy hit 290 last year with a near 800 OPS. The guy can hit major league pitching.
The only problem with him is he can't field. And I just don't think he's a DH. And he doesn't hit for enough power, and I'll stand by that. But Milliken, let the record show, Jimmy Stewart greater than Matt McCarthy.
I think Jay Stu is a better man than all of us, if we're being honest. But yeah, you start looking. You start looking at what Masataka Yoshida is doing. He's been simply incredible. And I do think there is a bit of a disconnect when you look at what was happening earlier in the season, where he wasn't super happy when he wasn't being put out there. And they were choosing to play Rob Refsnyder in left field over him because part of the whole run prevention unit was, hey, we're going to play great defense. And too bad if you're a fine hitter, but you're not someone who can kind of carry the offense. Since July 1st, these are Masataka Yoshida's numbers. He's hitting 330 with a 147 weighted runs created plus. That means he's been 40% better than league average as a hitter.
What's his OPS?
I'm waiting for the page to load. I was actually buying myself a little time.
No, that's why you went. I just knew you went straight to the weighted runs created plus because I know it's one of your favorite stats. I'm like, can you give me a stat that I'm going to understand?
Here we go.
People are going to understand, please and thank you. What's his OPS since July 1st?
893. The OBP is almost 400. He's striking out 13% of the time, but also walking 8% of the time. So now he's walking more than he did last year when it was around 5%. If you look at the kind of mechanics on his swing, they're a lot different than they were earlier in the year. And maybe that's because of the injury he was dealing with his thumb as well. He is getting healthier. There was a comment the other day where seemingly he was still upset about not playing defense, where he was like, hey, the only thing I can do for the Red Sox is hit, so that's what I'm going to try to do. And they seem to be very against him even facing lefties until a couple weeks ago. And now that's even started to change with how much he's offering for the lineup. Do I think he's going to be, guy who hits with a 900 OPS? No, but I think he's better than a league average bat. I think he'll, maintain something around an 810, 820 OPS. Is that worth the contract? No, it's not at the end of the day, but it's definitely a suitable player, and he's been a major reason why the Red Sox offense has been where it's been lately.
Is he just really a streaky guy? And that's what or is that more the injury? He got hurt last year, and he was never the same.
I think it's more the injury, and I think more was adjusting to the full MLB season last year, which they shoved down everybody's throat every chance they had.
Flying and all that. He gets tired from flying.
Exactly. His whole body was getting exhausted because he hadn't been used to playing that many games. Now it seems like he's maintaining, but he also missed a fair portion of time this year. So yeah, I think Masataka Yoshida deserves the at-bats right now. It's hard to go against him, even if he isn't tearing lefties up, but he's improving. A couple weeks ago, it was like a 120 batting average. It's now getting a little closer to 200.
So then he's a Brian Daubach, Troy O'Leary type, which the Red Sox need. They need that type of player.
The only limitation is he doesn't play the field.
Troy O'Leary was a bad fielder.
But they don't even trust Yoshida to take the field.
Right. I know. It was one of the worst defensive plays in Fenway Park history when the ball hits the light.
But what was annoying was all offseason they preached the opposite. They said, hey, we thought by the end of the year he was taking steps forward defensively. He's going to come into spring training. He's going to get some opportunity. When he got here, they took his glove and they threw it in the trash. They said, you will never put this on again.
Kyle Schwarber plays a better left field than Yoshida.
I wouldn't go that far. I'm sorry.
Certainly
He's played more games in left field. I mean, those are
facts. That's Dave Dombrowski.
Yeah, well, no, or is that Heim Bloom trying to put him at first base? Hey, we just put
we're talking about left field here.
Put Yoshida at first base.
I'm only talking about the outfield. I'm talking about Fenway left field.
Yeah.
Schwarber greater than Yoshida in left field.
Wow, that's tough.
I think not opinion.
That's tough.
They're close. I would put Yoshida. I think Yoshida makes the routine plays. I've seen Kyle Schwarber.
Then why is
routine
Schwarber
plays
out there and Yoshida can't find his baseball glove?
Well, we have different front offices at this point.
Dave Dombrowski's is pretty good front office.
I'll tip my cap to Dave Dombrowski. I will do that.
Excellent front office, Dave Dombrowski.
I miss Sugar Daddy Dave.
But they've also worked their butt off to make sure Kyle Schwarber doesn't have to play defense anymore with Austin Hayes there, the Brandon Marsh trade as well a couple of years back now.
It's all about roster construction.
And they also made a great move in moving Bryce Harper to first base.
Yes, because anybody can play first base. Well, actually, Bryce Harper can, but Kyle Schwarber can. We did find that out in 2021. Speaking of first base, is Tristan Casas going to be playing first base for the Red Sox anytime soon?
And how are his cornrows?
Right? What the hell's going on in Tristan Casas' world right now? I always want to get the update. You and I did a whole segment on Casas last week.
So weird.
Where we were talking about the injury, and then that was the very same night where 30 minutes later he came out saying that, he felt like every time he swung he was getting stabbed, with a knife in the ribs. And then he came out the next day and said, no, I don't have any pain. This guy, I have no idea what to make. I'm just convinced he literally says whatever the hell comes to his mind, whether it's true or not. Who the hell knows? But I just don't know when he's going to be back. And it doesn't sound like Alex Cora knows when he's going to be back either.
No, and Alex Cora kind of said today, it's up to him. When he returns, he says he needs to find his timing, and that's kind of what it is. If you look at what he's been doing down in AAA, he's been swinging it. It's 7 games down there, 286, 375, 464, 839 OPS, and he's smacking doubles. He has 5 of them. The only game he went hitless was the very first one. Now he also has 9 strikeouts over that stretch. So if you want to kind of feel out the timing and say, yeah, well, he's K'ing a lot. He's trying to figure it out. But seemingly he's hitting the ball hard. It's not like the injury is making it so he can't drive the ball. I think at this point, I look at what this whole Casas experiment has been. I think there's a disconnect between the team and him, and part of it has been Casas' messaging.
Is there a disconnect between Tristan Casas and Tristan Casas? I don't
think so. I think the comments that people were freaking out about, I think when he was speaking generally, he was like, yeah, I'm playing. Like, I'm good enough to be out there. I'm fine.
Right.
Does it hurt?
I'm getting stabbed in the ribs with a knife. But no, it doesn't hurt.
Hyperbole. I think he was more referring to, yeah, I'm good enough to be out there. I'm progressing. But yeah, and he mentioned to Alex Spear, there's been an uptick in pain. For the Red Sox to be surprised that he's dealing with pain, I think Casas just needs to tone it down a little bit with the wording. Realize that even if you're being a little sarcastic, that doesn't translate well over a quote. And he's stepped in it now 3 different times. And I love Casas. I talk about him all the time. You should have never set the dates when the Red Sox told you not to. Instead, you gave different, July 1st. Initially, it was supposed to be the first day you could come off the IL. Stop setting timelines. Secondly, the dry swing stuff. You misled some reporters. They got confused. They were clearly upset. Now you've stepped in it a 3rd time, and Alex Cora called you out publicly and said, hey, I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, are we on the same page here? That's never good when Alex Cora gets to the point of doing that, because we know how much of a player's coach he is. And this is the same Alex Cora that said over the offseason, Tristan Casas is our MVP of the offseason. He was showing him some serious love. I think this is where Tristan needs to rein it in a little bit overall. But when you look at the Sean McAdam report from a couple weeks ago, where they seemingly said, you know what, we're now expecting Casas closest to September. The timeline jumped suddenly within a week to, oh no, he's going to start his rehab assignment in a week and get going. I think the Red Sox have been telling Casas it's a pain tolerance issue. I think he's been saying, oh no, I'm definitely feeling it, and he's trying to work through it to the point where he feels comfortable playing. I think now even Cora is saying, well, hey, if he wanted to be back today, we'd put him in the lineup. But he's still battling this pain tolerance. I don't know if they were hoping he'd kind of accelerate a little quicker, and Casas is like, I'm fighting through it. I'm trying to get there, and I'm not there yet. But it just hasn't felt like, to me, they've been on the same page at any point the last couple weeks.
I'm not convinced he's going to give them anything when he comes back. I just don't know if he's going to stay healthy. I don't know what the hell's going on between him and the team. And when Cora says, hey, it's kind of up to him when he comes back, I don't feel good about any of this. I just don't. I don't think you should feel good about it as a Red Sox fan.
I will say, how does that impact your thinking with Dom Smith?
I'm not moving on from Dom Smith if Casas comes back, and I know they're both left-handed hitters, but I'm not counting on Casas staying healthy. It's a weird injury, man. It's just they need Smith, and I know it doesn't really fit the roster construction having a backup lefty first baseman when your starting first baseman's also a lefty. I'm just not counting on Tristan Casas staying healthy, or being. Who knows? Who knows with this guy?
The way I look at it, and I think you can make this all work, especially if it's a little awkward until rosters expand here. But yes, Dom Smith and Tristan Casas aren't the typical setup you want to have at first base. But when Dom Smith has become really one of the biggest guys in the clubhouse, they're saying it's him and Rob Refsnyder leading your team.
Can't move on.
You saw that moment in Kansas City when he did the swim move at home. He is ingrained in the identity of this team, and it's credit to Craig Breslow for bringing him in. And, goes to show you what an in-season addition can do, when someone goes down in a major way. But keep Dom Smith on the roster until Trevor Story's back, and this may complicate it a little bit. But if you take Romy Gonzalez, you can platoon him at second base with David Hamilton. Nick Solgaard, I love you. I know I've been preaching about you, and he's looked good since his debut. You're going to go back down to AAA, and we'll figure it out when rosters expand how it works. But Romy Gonzalez and David Hamilton can handle second base. Let Dominic Smith and Tristan Casas handle first.
Huge weekend series for the Red Sox against the Astros. We got to get you ready for it next. Now time for the Between the Lines Baseball Report, brought to you by Corona, the official cerveza of Major League Baseball. With what to watch out for during this weekend's games, enjoy the finer life of sports with Corona. Must be 21 plus. Relax responsibly. Corona Extra Beer, imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois. There are two things to watch out for this weekend. Milliken. One, massive series for the Red Sox. Real quick, 30 seconds on this series between the Red Sox and the Astros.
Yeah, I think you look at who you're facing tonight, Ronel Blanco. I call him the luckiest pitcher in all of baseball this year. Now, a lot of people didn't know who he was entering the year. He threw the no-hitter, and then people were like, oh, this guy's pretty good. It's a 2.98 ERA through 21 starts. You look at the FIP, it's 4.43. It is the pitcher with the biggest difference between ERA and FIP in all of baseball this year, right? You have Tanner Houck on the mound, who we talked about the last 6 starts. The ERA is over 6. This feels like a game you should be able to take. Where it gets funky is starting tomorrow. Bullpen game. It seemingly looks like with Cooper Criswell landing on the IL, COVID IL, Brad Keller is going to be starting. That's going to be a hard game, but you're facing Spencer Arrighetti, who has a 5 ERA, and then James Paxton on the finale day with the Astros likely needing a bullpen day. I don't see any reason why you can't take 2 out of 3 here.
The number 2 thing to watch out for this weekend is the Cape League Championship Series, which is just set. The Bourne Braves are playing the Harwich Mariners for the Cape Cod Baseball League Championship. Game 1 tomorrow night in Bourne, 6 o'clock at Doran Park, one of the best ballparks on the Cape. I don't know if I should say this publicly right now because I just got the DM. I think I'm throwing out the first pitch before Game 1 of the Cape League Championship Series.
Oh, no, you're not, McCarthy. Oh, no, you're not.
I am terrified. Terrified. There are going to be thousands of people there tomorrow night. And they want me. Now, I'm a Bourne Brave alum. I interned for the Bourne Braves. I love the Braves. Go Braves. They're going for their 3rd straight. They're going for the three-peat. 3rd straight Cape League Championship Series. I am a proud Bourne Brave until the day I die. I am terrified right now. Terrified. There is no way I'm going to hit that catcher's mitt. This is too much. This moment's too big for me.
McCarthy, you're telling me.
You'll do it?
My. There's going to be thousands of people.
You should come, Stu. I'm serious. Milliken, you should come tomorrow night.
I honestly feel like I need to. There's going to be thousands of people who have been waiting to kill Matt McCarthy, getting to watch him throw a baseball and see what you're made out of.
It's not a pretty sight. There's a reason why I do this. It's not a pretty sight.
McCarthy, you're tall, you're lanky, you got kind of a pitcher's build a little bit.
That's the problem. I'm tall, I'm lanky, and I don't know where it's going.
Oh, no.
I'm one of those. No, really like Randy Johnson.
Just slow down your mechanics. Footwork is important. And just tomorrow is a day of preparation for you. Just grab a baseball and just soft toss against a wall.
How many warm-up tosses do you think I need to take tomorrow? You've got the plan for me.
So I would say that first you grab a tennis ball from about 50 feet, throw it probably 20, 25 times. Then you grab a baseball and you start at about 40 feet and you work your way backwards until you get to 60 feet. 60 feet, 6 inches, of course. Low ball, too. And then you start throwing a baseball, and then you'll have an idea of what's going to happen.
It's not going to be good. I'm terrified I'm going to put it to the backstop. I know, it's like the whole,
here's the
don't
thing,
bounce
Matt.
it thing.
All you have to do is hit the catcher's mitt, and if you don't, just hit a photographer's groin, and it'll make SportsCenter.
Shout out Jordan Leandre. Legend.
There we go. I hope I see you tomorrow night at Doran Park for Game 1 of the Cape League Championship
Like Roger
Series.
Dorn?
No, it's Doran. Doran.
I mean, he's like 0 for the century against these guys, but has several foul tips.
Low ball, too. No, strike 2 fouled off. So, yeah, come out. Milliken, you should come. Stu, you should come tomorrow night. It's going to be a good time. Whether or not I hit the mitt, I'm going to be warming up for the next 23 hours.
I think you're going to hit the mitt.
It's good.
I believe in you.
I believe in Matt McCarthy.
Well, that makes 2 of us in this room, and not me. Joe Murray's coming up next. I'll see you tomorrow night at Doran Park, Cape League Championship Series. See ya.
WBZ-FM and HD.